Hello again, everybody. This is Brother Chooch for Outside the Bunker. This is a program that gets to the point. Say what you mean what you say, don't pull any punches. Time is of the essence. So I come to you this evening to share what I believe is an important perspective of what is going on right now. Now, don't fall into the trap that most people fall into. And that is days come and days go. And as long as people are not significantly affected by what's going on around the world, they just keep going and keep doing what they're doing. And yes, you and I, we need to go to work. We need to pay our bills. We need to go grocery shopping. We need to live life. However, it's the perspective and what you're focusing on. And I'm telling you right now, there's unfinished business. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. The unfinished business is about things that have already begun and are still presently, in a state where it hasn't fully played out. And how these things play out are of the utmost importance. Now, that may seem vague, but I'm going to get into more specifics about what I mean by that, okay? Because what's actually going on right now in the world is pretty significant in regards to Bible prophecy, all right? We have the workings and the makings of things playing out in such a way where prophecy, things that were told about thousands of years ago, can very easily play out because the table is so set. And I'm going to give you some examples. There is unfinished business. This is a big one. There's unfinished business with the situation between Israel and Hamas. Now, President-elect has made some very poignant statements. You could say somewhat threatening, an ultimatum, if you will, is all heck will break loose if the hostages that Hamas is harboring are not released by the inauguration. Now, this has the potential, especially when you're dealing with someone such as Donald Trump. This has the potential for Donald Trump to potentially send U.S. troops into to try to rescue these hostages for Israel, which could potentially create a world war. We already know how the world is viewing Israel, especially in regards to Hamas. If the United States pokes their nose in it and literally sends troops in there, this could really spark a huge confrontation, potentially be igniting World War III, right? So when I say unfinished business, we need to see how this is going to play out. Is this simply a bluff, or is this going to create an absolute firestorm in the Middle East, which is already very volatile? The other unfinished business is the Iran nuclear program. Something's going to happen here, guys. It's either going to be a situation, this is what I believe, it's either going to be a situation where Israel will make a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear program, potentially fulfilling Jeremiah 49 at the end of, I don't know what the end verse is, but it's the last section that talks about the very area of Iran and what's breaking the arrow of Iran, which sounds like, well, think about an arrow. An arrow launches, a bow breaks the bow of Iran. A bow launches an arrow. And I think even Iran came up with a graphic of someone shooting an arrow, and it was like a missile in the bow. Okay? There's going to come a day where that prophecy is going to be fulfilled, where the bow of Iran is going to be broken. And that potentially could happen if Israel strikes and destroys Iran's nuclear program. And it talks about in that section about refugees, basically, that there's going to be people that are going to be scattered. There will be no nation on earth that won't claim to have someone from this area that was affected. So this is unfinished business that needs to play out. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know when and if that will happen, if it will happen exactly like that, but this is unfinished business. And so when I talk about the unfinished business that's going to dictate pretty much if 2025 is indeed the rapture season or not, I have a hard time believing that if some of these or all of these things, because I got to get into more stuff, happens, that 2025 wouldn't be the rapture. Think about that. Because I cannot see Iran's nuclear program being attacked and dismantled, that would lead into something bigger. Perhaps lead into a Ezekiel 38-39 scenario, which I believe will be either right before the rapture, probably right before the tribulation period, rather, because I don't think that there's going to be a huge gap between the rapture and the tribulation period. So that could lead into a situation where you got Ezekiel 38 and 39 being fulfilled. This probably would also trigger the proxies of what they have left to go full out on Israel. And that in itself could be Psalm 83 being fulfilled, and also Damascus becoming a ruinous heap pretty much overnight. And that still needs to be fulfilled. So all these unfinished businesses in the Middle East could be all interconnected and happen all around the time, I believe, after the rapture, right before the tribulation period. I personally don't believe we're going to be around for that, but things could happen so quickly. And even at the time where they're saying peace and safety, peace and security. And that in itself, brothers and sisters, I believe is unfinished business. If you go to the United Nations website and pull up some of the minutes and of their meetings and discussions around Israel, you're going to see that term in the language of these meetings and these speeches and these plans of peace and security, peace and security. I have a hard time believing that the United Nations, of all places on earth, who've been drumming peace and security, that we're going to have to wait a very long time before the end times are into a situation where we're into the tribulation period. Why would the Lord say, when they say peace and safety, then suddenly, right? It just doesn't seem like there's a great pause. The other unfinished business is what is going to happen with this potential two-state solution. Because something's got to give. We know that the countries that are supporting the Palestinians want a two-state solution. I believe Trump, sometimes he waffles, but I would not be surprised once he's in office, he's going to push two-state solution. Israel, who wants to continue with their Abraham Accords, especially with Saudi Arabia made it clear that they won't even come to the table and talk about the Abraham Accords unless the two-state solution is in play. So this is unfinished business. How is this going to play out? Is it going to happen or not going to happen? So this is unfinished business. And I believe that this unfinished business very well could all come to a head in 2025, along with everything else that seems to be lining up. But there's more. Unfinished business. Will things go uneventfully between now and the inauguration or shortly thereafter the inauguration? That's unfinished business. We have other things happening in the horizon which lends itself to, again, this theme of unfinished business that we don't know how it's going to play out. And I want to be careful with my language here. I'm going to call it the bird buggy. I'll spell it out for you. The bird, F-L-U. I'm going to refer to it as the bird buggy. If this bird buggy continues to grow and go transfer over to human beings, and people start getting sick, and perhaps some of those people who get sick start to die, we could have another situation where the world goes on lockdown, if you will. This possibly could happen. And if it's not the bird buggy, it could be a different kind of buggy that comes from China or somewhere else. So we have to keep our eye on this because trust me, folks, it's a matter of weeks before the world goes from normalcy to restrictions and limitations. And many of us, if not all of us on here, know what that's like. If you get a buggy that has higher lethality than the former buggy, you will have the public up in arms and very scared and very worried. This is unfinished business. Now, if the bird buggy doesn't amount to anything, then you could say, okay, that unfinished business is finished. We don't watch it. And that's part of what we do here at TOL is we watch what's going on, and then we see if things are progressing in such a way where it becomes a bigger issue, especially related to prophecy. So something like a pestilence, something like an earthquake, something like a step towards a one world government, one world order, one world economy, one world religion. We watch that. I watch what Pope Francis does and says. Why? Because I'm interested in how the one world religion that will be in the tribulation period, if we're working towards that. And to be quite honest with you, Pope Francis has done a stellar job of trying to accomplish that. So we watch that. And we continue to watch, and we continue to seek the Lord, and we continue to think out loud. Now, some of this stuff comes and goes, and some of this stuff is a slow churning, like churning butter very slowly. Like, for example, things could go back and forth in the Middle East. Trump could get elected in office. Things could go back and forth in the Middle East, a lot of jawboning and going back and forth and empty threats, and things don't hit the proverbial fan until 2026. That's possible. Like I had a feeling when this whole thing happened with, what was it, December 6th or 7th in 2023, that this could be a long, slow, drawn out affair. And guess what? Here we are in 2025, and it's still happening. It's still going. It hasn't reached the summit of whatever this is going to be. And that's why we wait and we watch. But if you want to sit on your hands and dismiss all this stuff and stick your head in the sand like the rest of the world, you have the option to do that. But as for me, I am watching this stuff intently and closely because based on the days that we live in, I can't dismiss this stuff. I can't live life like everything's swell and normal. I don't wake up in the morning and thinking about great time on planet Earth today. No, I believe that we're living in perilous times, that we are in the last moments before the worst 7 years that will ever be on planet Earth. And it's sometimes a tough way to live because I seem, come across to people like, boy, you're a real hopeless, pessimistic person. Read the 66th book of the Bible. And you tell me if you have a rosy outlook in the near immediate future. Because guess what? If you do the math, about half the inhabitants of planet Earth in that 7-year period are going to die off. Currently, there's 8 billion people on Earth. Could you imagine in 7 years, 4 billion people perish? Let that sink in. And more so than anything, there's souls on the line here. It's one thing to die in this life. It's another thing to stand before the living God and be condemned. And I'm sorry I'm getting riled up. I only had 1 cup of coffee today. It was early this morning. I am as serious as I can be. I believe that we really, really have to watch closely. And I say that with an asterisk, noting that I understand, brothers and sisters, that time could pass and nothing becomes and hits that crescendo that I'm talking about. But I think that we have to continue to encourage each other to keep watching, because if this is indeed like the days of Lot and the days of Noah, things happen suddenly. The judgment came suddenly. And everyone was caught off guard except Noah's family and Lot. Even Lot lingered where the angels had to grab him and virtually drag him and his wife and daughters out of Sodom. So yes, Lord, come quickly. Maranatha. And Lord, give us the strength to continue on this journey day by day, because watching and living in the days that we live in right now, it's not easy. And we need the strength and guidance of the Holy Spirit. Dear Father, help us. We're desperate and weak without you. And anyone who's tuning in who does not believe in Jesus Christ and has not placed his faith in Jesus and his finished work, I implore you to do so. That's the only way you could get saved, is trust in the person of Christ, who's the Son of God, who came down, took on flesh, lived a perfect, pleasing life without sin, and then voluntarily went to the cross and spilt his blood for us to pay in full the punishment for our sin, and then to prove everything, he rose 3 days later, conquering the grave, giving us that hope of eternal life. Place your faith in him. I'm at the limit of my time. 20 minutes is the tops that outside the bunker goes. So I need to go. I hope to meet you here, there, but especially in the air. God bless.